Good afternoon and welcome to the webinar on the potential of the European Solidarity Corps program as a future European engagement program organized within Strategic National Agencies Cooperation on Volunteering, coordinated by SALTO European Solidarity Corps. My name is Alexandra Maljiski and I will be moderating today's discussion with our expert guests. Before I introduce whom we have with us today and start what I'm sure will be a very interesting conversation, I would like to give the floor to Christine Weil from SALTO European Solidarity Corps to introduce the topic and framework of the webinar. Christine was one of the first European Solidarity Corps program officers in Europe and is now working in the SALTO European Solidarity Corps. Christine.
Thank you, Alexandra. Hello, good afternoon, and also a warm welcome from my side. I'm really excited and happy to be here and to have with you this online event on the potential of the Solidarity Corps program. I would just like to shortly introduce our SALTO Solidarity Corps Resource Center, and also I would like to share with you why we are organizing this event. SALTO Solidarity Corps focuses its work on supporting the European Commission, national agencies, and beneficiaries to enable the exploitation of the full potential of the European Solidarity Corps program. As Alexandra already mentioned, within our work, we coordinate a strategic partnership amongst national agencies where we focus on strengthening European youth volunteering. The idea for the topic of today's online discussion came from a mapping that was conducted within the SNAC volunteering. It's called Mapping Study of European Civic Engagement Framework and its links with youth volunteering. You will find the link to the mapping in the comment section of your YouTube link. Actually, already prior to this online event, there have been numerous discussions about the topic. Questions like, what is this all about? What is an engagement program actually? And do you really want to create a new European program? It came up. Well, I have to admit, we certainly chose the topic a bit provocative. But what we actually want to do is to initiate a discussion about the high potential of the Solidarity Corps program, how formats like volunteering and solidarity projects are connected to civic engagement, and what we need in order to meet the needs of a strong civil society in the future. We see our role as advocating for a value-based European youth program that meets the needs of society and has sufficient resources to fulfill its targets also in the future. But I know you have not joined us to listen to me today, so I'm actually quite glad and happy to welcome our guest speakers, and I will hand over to our facilitator, Alexandra, now to introduce to you the experts of this panel. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you very much, Christine. And just before we introduce our guests for today, we would also like to know whom we have in the audience with us this afternoon. Who is there watching and following this live stream. So for that, we would like to invite you just to answer one question using Mentimeter. We will be sharing the link and the QR code here on the screen now, so you can access it and just tell us what is your connection to volunteering. So how are you connected to volunteering? Whether you are a volunteer yourself or you work maybe in the national agency or you're a youth worker or any other way, we would like to know. So if you can just go to menti.com and enter the code that you can see on the screen, or else use the QR code that you can scan with your phone and answer this one question, that would be great. So we can have an idea of who is with us this afternoon. So you can join on menti.com and use the code that you can see on the top of the screen. And I see we have some first answers coming up. So we have some facilitators, NA experts, coordinators, current volunteers. That's great. You are still welcome to join the Menti. You can also find the link below the streaming on YouTube, so you can also access it easily that way. We have quite a lot of people and different profiles here with us today. volunteers, coordinators, trainers, policy officers, representatives of national agencies, ex-volunteers, coordinators from NGOs, NA officers, SALTO colleagues. Great. So we have quite a variety of guests here, and we are very excited for that because this webinar will be interactive as well, in the sense that you will have the space to ask questions to our guests. So we hope you stay with us and engage in the conversation. Very well. Thank you very much for sharing your connection to volunteering. And I now have the pleasure of introducing the 4 expert guests we have with us this afternoon. And I would also like to thank you for joining us and looking forward to our conversation this afternoon. So to present whom we have with us here today, I will start off with Ella Bouquet, who is an accomplished expert in European programs, currently leading the European Solidarity Corps division at the Erasmus France Youth and Sport Agency. In this role, she is integral to setting the agency's strategic direction and managing decentralized program components, including volunteer and solidarity projects. Previously, Ella was the head of the department for supporting higher education and research operators at the French Ministry of Higher Education, Research and Innovation. Her achievements in this role include enhancing France's participation in Horizon Europe, recruiting and managing a new team of national contact points, and representing France in strategic committees. Welcome, Ella. The next speaker I will present is Rares Voicu, from the European Youth Forum, who is 21 years old and has been involved in the field of youth and child participation since the age of 15. Over the past 6 years, he has successfully led various youth organizations at local, national, and international levels, advocating for the rights of his peers and empowering them to have their voices heard by decision makers. Rares currently serves as a board member of the European Youth Forum and leads the organization's efforts in non-formal education, youth work, and volunteering. He has previously worked for UNICEF in the field of child and adolescent engagement, supporting the participation of children in decision-making processes. Welcome, Rares. And the next guest speaker we have is Gabriella Civico, who is the director of Center for European Volunteering, where she takes a leading role in advocating for better volunteering policies, contributing her expertise at the European level in various European Union expert and advisory groups, such as EQF, Europass, Mobility of Young Volunteers, as well as in the European Solidarity Corps Research Center Advisory Group. She also represents Center for European Volunteering in the ESC Liaison Group for European Civil Society Networks, and has been further involved in establishing Civil Society Europe in 2014, where she's currently the president. Welcome, Gabriella. And our last guest speaker for today is Kamil Oleszkiewicz, who is a member of the Europeers Network, promoting youth opportunities provided by the EU among youth. Originally from Poland, he is actively involved in local and regional actions as a special educator, working with youth from underprivileged backgrounds. His need to be involved in social life is expressed by organizing several projects within the European Solidarity Corps. SALTO awarded Kamil's actions as the best youth social project, and he has been named a Young Edu Inspirator by the Polish Erasmus National Agency. Welcome, Kamil. And welcome once again, everyone. Very excited to kick off this conversation with you this afternoon. So without further ado, I would like to ask my first question to Ella Bouquet. That would be to know from you, what are the important elements of the European Solidarity Corps program that make it a strong and impactful EU youth program?
Thank you, Alexandra. So I will begin maybe to answer with a very general statement, just to stress that there's a very high level of satisfaction for Solidarity Corps participants And we have some studies measuring this through the RAY network. And also the studies demonstrate that the program has an impact in the long run on the trajectories of these participants. So I think it's very important and very nice as well when you work in an agency on the program to remind ourselves of this. In terms of features which make it strong and impactful and make it maybe unique I think one of the features is that it offers multiple formats. So it's very flexible and adaptable to the specific needs of the young people who take part in the program. You can have individual volunteering spanning from 2 weeks to 12 months. So very different experiences linked to the duration. And you can also have teams volunteering and solidarity projects. So you have a very broad offer in the program in terms of formats. I think another key impactful feature is the inclusion aspect of the program, both in terms of target group and in terms of aims and objectives. And I think it's important to note that we are higher at European level than the target which was set originally in terms of implicating young people with fewer opportunities. So I think that's also one way of having a strong impact. Then there is the whole process and story, if this is technical, but there's the whole quality label feature of the program and the training that goes with it as well, which requires for organizations taking part to really have a strategic projection, to identify best practices and really raise the standards. I think not only does it have impact on the quality of the volunteering, which is offered in the Solidarity Corps, but it also has a broad impact on the organizations which are taking part. I think the whole process really challenges organizations to think what are their strategic goals and so on. And maybe most importantly, I think the solidarity feature in the program, because the program is really relevant to raise awareness on the one hand, but also offer means for action to address key societal challenges, and in particular linked to the 4 program priorities. Young people need to project themselves in a desirable future. They are aware that the big societal changes will affect them more than the rest of the population. And the Solidarity Corps it has the power to transform indignation into collective action for general interests. And it's open to many, many types of beneficiaries. That's another of its features. So it can really adapt to the expectations of its participants and deliver impact where impact is needed. And this resonates with observed trends in terms of young people's expectations as well. They want to improve their skills, okay. They want to improve employability, okay. But they also want to address socioeconomic challenges. And the program provides a secured and meaningful pathway to do so. It is, okay, you don't just volunteer, you don't do volunteering, you volunteer for something. And I think that says something about the impact feature of the program. I mean, volunteering is about having an impact. And it's not just about providing opportunities. Of course, it does as well, but it's about making change, making a positive change. So maybe I have many other things I could add to this. But I think, for example, there is some co-financing coming from the Horizon Europe, which is the research and innovation funding program. And I think that really illustrates the potential. You have researchers and innovators trying to address some key societal challenges through research, but they know that they won't achieve the results if there is no civic engagement with it. And the connections between the Solidarity Corps and many, many public policies, to be honest, can be really, really fertile and can really deliver and can really be a driver of change.
Thank you very much, Ella. Inclusion, solidarity, impact, civic engagement, some of the words that I picked up during your answer, and we will explore those more throughout this webinar today. So thank you for this kickoff, and I would now like to give the floor to Rares from the European Youth Forum. And our first question for you would be, if you had to underline one main challenge and one main opportunity from the European Solidarity Core Program, what would those be?
Yes, thank you so much, Alexandra. Well, my main challenge right now is that I'm in a space that's quite noisy, so I apologize if there's any background noise while I speak. I'll try to speak over it. Thank you so much for this question, and I think following up on what Ella was saying is that is true. Is the European Solidarity Corps is a program that offers all young people an opportunity, regardless of the background where they come from, to access quality, solidarity, volunteering experiences. So it serves as a space for them to acquire personal, educational skills, social skills as well, civic and professional competencies over a more extended period of time and in a more structured way. So I think it brings something that Erasmus Plus doesn't in general, which is this more longer-term component and also an integration of the young volunteers in the local communities, which brings about with it, again, a much broader set of skills that volunteers that undertake European Solidarity Corps assignments have the opportunity to gain. When it comes to challenges versus opportunities, what we've noticed from our analysis with our member organizations in the European Youth Forum is that one of the main challenges that young people are facing when trying to apply or trying to undertake European Solidarity Corps assignment is the processing of visa applications for third country nationals. It's a very legal and very specific requirement, but it really represents a very significant hurdle. And this is particularly difficult for volunteers that come from outside of the European Union, so who want to take part in placements in the EU, but who do not have a EU citizenship or the right to reside in the European Union. So apart from having those visa complexities, these third country volunteers, they also face legal challenges, financial hurdles. So this is really a matter that strikes to the core of what the European Solidarity Corps is, which is access and accessibility and the possibility for it to be open for all young people. Another issue that we're facing more broadly when it comes to volunteering, but specifically in the case of the ESC, because of its nature, is the recognition of volunteering across Europe. So this includes acknowledging the skills that young people and the competence that young people gain through volunteering and changing how employers receive these experiences and those skills. Because at the end of the day, you don't undertake a European Solidarity Corps placement for your CV or for your career, but it definitely helps to have those skills and those competencies recognized by the labor market as what they are, which is valuable, very valuable competencies. So in the European Youth Forum, what we believe in is establishing a EU volunteer status. And we believe that this would address those challenges because it would improve the visibility of the ESC, the accessibility of the ESC, and by creating a special visa category for those with the EU volunteer status, those participants from third countries, they could enjoy faster visa issuing procedures, free of charge, ideally. And this would make it really, really easier for young volunteers to move across borders and to be able to engage in solidarity work, regardless of whether or not they are citizens of the European Union. But until this status is established, because we're not naive, we know it's a lengthy process. But until the status is established, we need financial and legal support for ESC placements and for projects that involve third country nationals, because hosting organizations also need, they want to support the volunteers that they recruit, but they need themselves legal and financial support to be able to do this. So at the end of the day, it really comes down to not discriminating against young people coming from third countries based on their nationalities, based on their visa regulations or their legal status. So to actually allow it for all and to open it up for all young people. When it comes to opportunities, right now, what we're seeing in the reality of our member organizations, I forgot to mention it in the beginning, but the European Youth Forum is the largest platform of youth organizations in the world. So we bring together more than 100 youth organizations, both national youth councils and international youth organizations. And the reality that we're seeing is that the current age limit for the program does not match the reality of young people's volunteering intentions on the ground. So many young people start volunteering well before they turn 18. That's not just their epiphany, the second they turn 18, they want to become involved and engaged. And this is visible in many of the member organizations of the European Youth Forum. I myself started my activism journey when I was 15 years old in my local school students' council. So young people get involved and adolescents get involved even before they turn 18. So we need to lower, what we're proposing at the European Youth Forum is to lower the participation, the minimum participation age to 16 years old, which is frankly similar or will be similar to certain Erasmus Plus actions, especially for mobility. So I would say these are some of the challenges and these are some of the opportunities or the proposals that we have with the European Youth Forum, with the goal of, again, opening up the program for more young people who are interested, and as Ella said earlier, who have this passion for fighting for for civic participation and for our democracies as well.
Thank you very much, Rares, for this first inspirational inputs. And again, I think we will tackle again and more the topic of recognition and this volunteer status later on in this conversation as well. And I would now like to give the floor to Gabriella Civico. As the Center for European Volunteering has led a coalition in Brussels of European networks active in European Solidarity Corps and contributed to the midterm review. So it would be interesting to know if there are any ideas about what a value-based European volunteering program for young people should look like in the future.
Thank you, Alexandra. Yes, we had a number of fruitful meetings with the other European networks, European Youth Forum included. So Rares already mentioned a number of the things that I had on my list. So I try not to repeat them, but just as a start to reinforce the things that were mentioned there by Rares. I think the first thing to mention is that, of course, the coalition, this group of international networks involved in the European Solidarity Corps in one way or the other, supports the idea to keep a standalone program for the European Solidarity Corps. That Europe needs a standalone solidarity-focused program. So now as we approach midterm reviews, we approach preparing new MFF, we approach preparing new maybe models of program, styles of programs, that it's very clear to us that we need to keep this separated program. This is because of identity, because of the message that we send, but also in terms of keeping the program agile. Ella already mentioned the possibility for inter-program financing. There's some support now from Horizon 2020. We envisage in the future that there could be other support from other programs because volunteering, because solidarity is so horizontal, it's so cross-cutting, that we really believe that it would benefit absolutely from remaining as a standalone program and having this possibility, having this agility to, from time to time, when needed or when it can be strategically important, to collaborate with other programs as well. So this is very very important for us. We also think that the in-country nature of the European Solidarity Corps should remain when it is the best solution for the community challenge that's trying to be met, and when it's the best solution for the volunteers involved as well. We don't want people to think only of Europe as being some kind of travel agency, that we're only European when we travel, that we can only contribute to European values when we go to another country. No, we can live European values at home. We can contribute to the creation of the future of Europe that we want to see at home in our own countries. And that's why we think keeping the in-country component of the European Solidarity Corps is very important. It's a very important message to say that you don't have to always be mobile. You don't have to always travel to be European. We are all Europeans in the European Union, and we can all live out European values in our day-to-day life through solidarity, through volunteering. So this in-country aspect is very important for the future. Also, in terms of governance of the program, you mentioned the advisory group that exists for the European Solidarity Resource Center. But we do think that there needs to be a more inbuilt process within the governance of the European Solidarity Corps, where young people, youth organizations, solidarity organizations, volunteering organizations are really truly embedded and involved in the governance of the program. And in this way, we can ensure that the program continues to meet the needs of society and continues to respond to reality as we go forward. Another aspect that we mentioned, and I saw from we don't know exactly who is in the room watching us, but we saw a bit from the Mentimeter at the beginning who is there, and consistency across the national agencies is something that organizations keep asking for and keep wanting to have a better understanding, and being able to give young people across Europe a much more similar European Solidarity Corps experience than is possible now, with the different interpretations of the rules, with the different understandings of the way things could happen. So consistency across the NAs, more consistency across the NAs and the way the program is applied is something that we want to see in the future. We also want to see more centralized actions. Maybe this is a bit technical, but most of the European Solidarity Corps money is managed in a decentralized way. So it's managed by the program countries involved in the program, but we would like to see more resources being managed centrally, which would mean that European networks, European volunteering organizations could really implement European-wide programs which are centrally funded, rather than having the national focus that they have now. Other aspects of funding are very much also related to inclusion and improving the quality of the program. We can all ask for more money, yes, and more money for more volunteers, but going a little bit deeper into that, some of the areas that certainly need more investment is the mentoring aspect. We know that when volunteers are involved in the program and they have good quality mentorship, that this really improves the impact, it improves the experience for everyone. So more resources for mentorship is very important. I think we already mentioned the team volunteering. So I think we know that there's individual volunteering, there's solidarity projects. We also have the team volunteering, and having finances for team leaders within the team volunteering is also something that we think would improve very much the quality. Whilst recognizing the European Solidarity Corps as it is of course a youth program, when we start to speak about wider European civic engagement programs, I think then we have to open up the question of age and look more at intergenerational opportunities for a wider European civic engagement program. But while we talk about European Solidarity Corps, which is a youth program, we need to also look at what intergenerational possibilities, what opportunities can we offer also within the program. We see that Europe is becoming more fragmented. We see now with the elections how there is really a generational divide across many political aspects of the conversations that are happening around the European elections in particular. So again, we see, especially perhaps in the form of mentorship, that mentors within the program could be from another generation to the young people involved, and that this could introduce a very important intergenerational component. Rares already mentioned the important issue of visas and making the program more inclusive in that way. But in general, all of the European networks that were involved in our meetings, we want to see a wider implication of the program beyond the program countries. So really looking especially at EU candidate, EU accession countries, how young people from those countries can get involved. Couple of final points, maybe just to mention as well, talking of Rares's points, definitely for the solidarity projects, there is a complete feasibility that the age could be reduced to 16. This makes complete sense to everyone. For the other issues of traveling abroad and living abroad, and maybe there are some issues, legal issues around having to be 18 that need to be looked at more carefully, but certainly for the solidarity project, we don't see any reason why the age could not be lowered to 16. Also, in terms of inclusivity and to make the program more flexible, again, those of you that know the program well, you will know that there are certain limits, that you can only do one long-term individual volunteering. You can do several short-term. Sometimes the rules are not very clear. Sometimes people get caught out and they do 1 week too long on the short term, and then they can't ever do a long-term, ever again. So we would like to see something a bit more flexible, that's more in keeping with the precarity of young people's lives in today's age, where there is much more of a possibility of a kind of mix and match, that young people would have vouchers, they would have tokens, that they would be able to build up to, I don't know, a total of 12 months experience in different aspects of the program, or that they could do as many teams volunteerings as they wanted, or there could be some way of gathering teams experiences over a longer period of time, so that young people could be encouraged to do more, rather than sometimes the message being, no, you've had one opportunity, now that's it, you can't do more. So encouraging and facilitating a bit more this mix and match idea, whilst at the same time, of course, improving the funding and casting the net wider to making sure that we don't only focus the money on a small number of individuals, but that we do cover a wide variety and diverse group of young people, but also that the way they can get involved can be adapted to whatever period they are at in their life. Somebody who is 20 is not at the same point in their life when they are 29. So the experiences should differ. And then last point, it's a very broad topic to go into, but not to forget also in European Solidarity Corps, we have, of course, the humanitarian aid strand now. So we shouldn't forget this part, which is a newer aspect of the European Solidarity Corps in terms of the previous years, since it was established in 2016. And there, from the organizations that we've been talking to that have been involved in that, there are several things that need to be done, mainly around improving the pace of the training, the pace of the deployment, speeding up the whole process so that young people don't lose motivation, so that they don't lose the opportunity to engage in the humanitarian aid process. Looking again at the age limit within the humanitarian aid, how that's really working with allowing the older people to be involved as team leaders, etc. And re-looking at the budget for the humanitarian aid strand, because it doesn't really take into account the considerable security costs, the considerable in-country travel costs, which are involved sometimes when the country only has one international airport, but then the volunteering actually takes place many hours travel from the international airport, and how that is built into the funding. So within humanitarian aid, many things to look at and adjust, looking forward to the new program, but everybody agrees that keeping the humanitarian aid part of the European Solidarity Corps is very important, with perhaps the change that at the moment the humanitarian aid strand of the European Solidarity Corps, the solidarity, if you like, the volunteering, is only allowed to go in one way. It's only Europeans going out to the world to help and support others, where a much more reciprocal program is something that most of the organizations that we've talked to thinks would be far more beneficial. So also volunteers coming from other parts of the world, coming to Europe to also help us, be in solidarity with us, work together to improve our sustainability as a planet as a whole, with the humanitarian aid strand working in both directions, not only a one-way street as it is now. So that would be some of the ideas that we had, but our full document is online. And just to mention, thanks to all the organizations that contributed to that as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions as well, or go into things more deeply if people are interested. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gabriella, for this inspirational kickoff as well. And referring also a bit to what you tackled in terms of impact, I would now like to give the floor to Kamil and talk a little bit about the impact of the program at the local level. So according to the experience of Europeer, what would you say are the changes the European Solidarity Corps program makes in the local community?
Hello, everyone, and thanks for having me. So as I noticed that the majority of our today's audience is already in a way familiar with the ESC program. So what I would like to do is to ensure you all that actually, despite some challenges, the ESC program is really working. And I would like to ensure you in a way that we are always doing it in our Europeers network, which is to share a bit of a story of my personal project that I've implemented. And just imagine that now you're traveling to Poland, you're in a small post-industrial city with a long story of coal mines and other kind of heavy industry. And there is just one small community center, and we are all volunteering there. But there are some young people aged like 16 to 18, and they're not really into thinking about the future, what they can achieve. They have also their siblings also in the community center, so they automatically kind of in charge of them. But there's something that they're missing. And while we're talking with them, we discovered that they have a lot of potential, but not always they have the ability to express what they need and also to gain new abilities, new competences. So what we done actually about our Solidarity project, what we implemented was the project called the Leaders of Solidarity. So what we made, that was the series of workshops dedicated to gaining new competencies regarding leadership, communication skills, working in teams. And then we let the participants themselves to do something for the local community. And that was the Solidarity Picnic, where they all to work together for our community, also for the refugees from Ukraine. We all built something together. And you can say, okay, so there was the picnic, there were some activities, it all took like one year, and that's it. So where's the impact? So what about the projects like that is that after the whole thing, after the whole project, there are still those young people. But now there are not only young people who want to maybe change something, maybe do something, but don't really know how. Now we have a team of leaders who are ready and have a willingness to act on behalf of their community. So what they are doing now is planning their own activity, their own Solidarity project. And this is how the lasting impact is making by the Solidarity core project. So that's a short story, and there are lots of stories like that we would love to share as Europeans, but also as just young people who had this experience with the ESC in general. Because even though there is just like the short period in our lives, so when we went on a volunteering abroad or when we're implementing the Solidarity project, there is something that we call the lasting impact. There's something in our heart, there's something in our minds that changed forever. And this is the change that we really want to see, and hopefully we're seeing it. In every action that is described throughout our whole international European network, there are stories like that, when the little steps change a very, very difficult situation, and somehow it is happening, and I really hope that it will be still continuing. So despite some challenges that we are all facing regarding the ESC programs, we are still here and we are still contributing, and there are still a lot of young people who are just waiting for someone to come to them and to tell them about those opportunities that are waiting, just to sign up, just to organize just to go somewhere. But there are still a lot of people that are missing this opportunity, not because they don't want, but still because they don't really know how to do so. And that's our role. So that's just like a short advertisement to the all NA staff here, that if you don't already have our European network on a national level, we are always happy to help you to establish. But also what we are doing and what is our mission is to spread the stories, to spread the experiences of young people among other young people, so that there is just like spreading the awareness and just like coming deeper and deeper, making new contact points, organizing new events, but also just talking like a peer-to-peer about what we achieved thanks to this experience. So at the very local level, there are so many things that are change. We can talk about the change of the perspective that people are perceiving European Union as in general, because there are some people in smaller town, especially, they only associate European Union with money on roads, money on bridges. But now they actually discover during our event and during all the kind of events that are happening across Europe, that there is something more than money. And this something is value. One of these values is solidarity, and this is what we want to spread, and this is what we want young people to join us to spread all together, to create more diverse but also more solidar European Union.
Thank you very much, Kamil, for sharing the European perspective and also emphasizing emphasizing this importance of cooperation. And I think it's also very interesting that we have different actors here with us today and can tackle this from different perspectives. Before we move on with more questions for our guests, thank you all for this first inspirational round. And I would like to invite the audience to also ask questions. So for that, you can use the Menti. It's the same Menti you had before. So if you still have it open on your browsers, you can just go back there. Otherwise, you can again scan the QR code that you can see here on the screen, or follow the link that you can see in the description of this live stream. And you can just feel free to share your questions throughout the webinar, and we will make sure to incorporate some of them into the program as well. So please share the questions here. And we will now move on with the conversation with our guests. Unfortunately, Rares from the European Youth Forum has to leave us now due to some unfortunate circumstance with flights, right, Rares? But thank you so much for making the effort of being with us, at least for a bit this afternoon.
Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great rest of the webinar.
Thank you very much. And we will now move on with our conversation. And I would like to give once again the floor to Ella, and to ask you a little bit about from your perspective, what would Europe lose without a strong EU youth volunteering program?
Thank you for the question. It's a tricky and it's a good question. And I'm talking from my personal point of view here. I think it's a good question because we shouldn't take things for granted. So I think it's important that we ask ourselves this question, that programs can disappear and priorities can change. And I think it's a good question. But it's a tricky question as well because it's always difficult to measure the cost of inaction, of not having something. But I'll try to answer. First, for participants, obviously, I think there's no transnational volunteering scheme that could really replace what the Solidarity Corps offers currently. At European level, it's the only program that offers long-term mobility opportunities free of charge, without any prerequisite in terms of educational background and so on. So yeah, these would be the obvious victims, maybe the first victims. But obviously the participating organizations would lose a lot as well, because it's not just funding and it's not just a platform to connect. It's also a whole quality framework and the training and the networking that goes with it, which is very important, and the whole process in terms of quality label as well. So they would definitely be victims as well. And then, as Kamil said, the local communities who benefit from the projects, they would lose a lot because the projects, the solidarity activities wouldn't take place. The hope and the energy that comes with them as well would not be spread. And I think the Europe at home effect would disappear because volunteers engage a lot with the local communities, maybe more than participants in other mobility schemes. And they bring Europe as well closer to people, regular citizens, some of whom have never traveled and probably won't in the future. So I think the communities would also lose a lot from this. And I have to say, politically for Europe, it would be also a missed potential. The program is popular. It's effective and has a huge potential to grow and to be a driving force for current, but also probably upcoming societal challenges. And it makes it real that Europe is not just the common market. It's also a societal project. It's something about the people. It's something that unites. So I think politically it would be a shame. And I have to say that the program is very cost effective, maybe too much so, because it's sometimes difficult for organizations to carry out the projects with the level of funding they have. And okay, it's okay to look at programs as investments. I mean, I wouldn't shy away from that. But it's a very cost-effective investment. And I'm not sure there are many programs that are as interesting in terms of investment for Europe. And then, but at national level, I mean, every day we have snippets of how the program made a beautiful change for participants, for organizations, for local communities. So, I mean, for me, it would be such a loss not to have all this change. And I mean, there are many ideas of how it can be improved, how it can be, how it could evolve. But definitely, I think it's a true asset, and the popularity of the program, although it's a small program, shows how much citizens in Europe can benefit, and how they like, and they think it's a wonderful opportunity for the young people to engage, and it's open to a very broad spectrum of young people and types of organizations. So it's a very inclusive, not only in terms of participants, but also in terms of stakeholders. And that's really rich as well, because you can draw the connections between NGOs and youth workers, and I think it takes time, it takes money, and the program is still fairly young. But yes, it really would be a missed potential for Europe.
Thank you, Ella, for sharing your insights, and to continue with this conversation. I would like to next give the floor to Gabriella, since Center for European Volunteering just had its General Assembly, and you have approved a policy statement on a European status for volunteers in voluntary service programs. And this is also something that is mentioned in the Better Conditions for Youth Volunteering position paper published by SALTO ESC. So can you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Sure, and you read there, I think, the very maybe longer title that we had. So it's European Status for Volunteers in Voluntary Service Programs, and we think that this is an important distinction for the reference that's made in the Better Standards document, because that refers to a status for European volunteers. At the Center for European Volunteering, we of course work in promoting and supporting all kinds of volunteering. So formal, non-formal, short-term, long-term, sporadic, regular, and this kind of formal, fairly full-time, fixed-term volunteering that we see within the European Solidarity Corps is actually quite unique to the Solidarity Corps and several other programs around Europe. But it's not the mainstream of volunteering. And a status for all volunteers in Europe would be quite impossible and probably not very useful, actually. Most volunteers in Europe don't need or wouldn't benefit particularly from a specific status of being a volunteer, because most volunteering happens in people's free time. They already have another status, employed, unemployed, taking benefits through sickness or whatever. They have different statuses, and they do their volunteering in and around their other situations. On the other hand, when people are involved in a full-time voluntary service program, they usually do that exclusively. They don't usually have that alongside another status. And this can have some negative effects on them long-term. We know, for example, that it creates a barrier for some people. They know that if they leave the country for a certain period of time, often more than 2 or 3 months, Most European Solidarity Corps full-time individual placements are longer than that. When they return home, they are not entitled to any social security payments. They cannot claim unemployment benefit. They cannot maybe claim their sick disability payments because they have been out of the country. And because this status of being a volunteer is not recognized, it creates a problem, it creates a barrier. So the idea of having a status for people in these full-time long-term voluntary service programs, we think would remove barriers. It would clarify the situation in front of public authorities, in front of state authorities. It would clarify things longer term in terms of pension requirements, rights, and rights regarding particularly unemployment benefits for young people, particularly rights to further training and education, that their status as a volunteer would be fully recognized when they finish the placement. But also during the placement, we've already mentioned the importance that it could have in terms of helping to get a visa. That will be very important with the status, but also things, day-to-day living, when you perhaps do, the cross-border, the international European Solidarity Corps, you can't get a mobile phone number in that country, that there are certain things that you can't do when you don't have an actual status in that country. So the status, we think, would help very much. We have defined in our policy that the full-time voluntary service program is people who are involved in full-time volunteering for 20 hours a week for a period that lasts for at least 3 months. We don't think trying to get a status or trying to apply a status on people who are doing a voluntary service program for less than 3 months is needed or would necessarily make sense. So more than 3 months and at least 20 hours. We also think that this status should not be incompatible with other statuses. So if somebody is also studying, or somebody is also working part-time, or somebody is claiming benefits as a person with disability, having this status as a volunteer should be perfectly compatible with all those other statuses. This is very important. We also stress in the policy that, of course, the creation of this status should very much involve the stakeholders involved. So should involve solidarity organizations, volunteering organizations, all kinds of volunteers who have been involved in these kind of voluntary service programs. It shouldn't be age defined. It should be for any age person who is involved in a full-time voluntary service program. And there are people of different ages involved in those things across Europe. So this is extremely important that everybody is involved in creating this status. And also that for a person to get the status, they need to be in an organization. There needs to be some connection to quality. So a person has to be doing the voluntary service within an organization which has some kind of quality status, some kind of quality recognition. I think we already mentioned that within the Solidarity Corps, this is inbuilt into the program, that organizations hosting volunteers within the Solidarity Corps have to have a quality status. This is not the same for all voluntary service programs. So we don't think that just any organization offering a so-called voluntary service program should be able to then automatically get the volunteer status for their volunteers, because this would be open to abuse of all kinds. So all organizations involved in having their volunteers taking up this status should have to go through some quality control, and where they don't exist, they would have to be put in place. Of course, for Solidarity Corps, it's very straightforward, but there are many, many other programs which are not part of Solidarity Corps, which would fit into this category of full-time voluntary service programs. Perhaps one last thing to mention about it, and it's about maybe language and nuances and legal frameworks of different things, but we know that many countries have not so much national or state volunteering programs, but they have national or state civic service programs. So usually these are distinct legally from being a volunteer in the country. But we do think that this legal status should cover also people doing civic service programs. So it's again, what's in the name, what do we call it? But if we call it a European status for volunteers in voluntary service programs, we of course also talk about people who are in civic service programs, which legally are not volunteer programs, but when you look at them and you look at the indicators and you look at the characteristics, they are often usually very similar to voluntary service programs, also civic service programs. And we see that these tend to be on the rise in Europe. More and more member states are looking at introducing national civic service programs, particularly for young people. We don't necessarily think they should only be for young people, that these kind of civic service programs can be interesting for people of all ages as well, but that this status would cover all of these kinds of people who are wishing to act out of a sense of solidarity to respond to the needs they see around them, and that they shouldn't be penalized by losing certain statuses, by making that choice and offering their time, their expertise, their energy to respond to the needs that they see around them. So the policy is available online as well. People can take a look. We're really at the starting point of this. It will be a very long road before there is a European status. I've been involved, as many people have, with trying to create the legal status for the cross-border European Association, which you might assume in a European Union, in a free market, would be quite easy. It's actually not possible. It is more possible now than it ever was, and we're getting there. So also, when hopefully we have true European civil society organizations, there will be even more opportunities for cross-border volunteers. There will be even more opportunities and need for this kind of status. So we are ready to work on it, and I know that many other stakeholders are as well. But I think we have to narrow the view, that we're not looking at the status for all volunteers in Europe, but we're rather looking at the status for a particular type and model of volunteer and volunteering within voluntary service programs.
Thank you, Gabriella, for sharing your perspectives and insights. And I think it's interesting that in the end you were referring to this active participation in society, right? Also through other kinds of initiatives. And I think that links very well to my next question to Kamil. And we are already getting questions from the audience as well. And someone highlighted how there are many studies showing the connection between volunteering and general democratic participation in society, which is very much connected to what I would like to ask you, Kamil, and that is, since we're in the week of the European elections, right? Active participation in democratic life is in many of our minds, but that might not necessarily be the case for all. So from your perspective, how can volunteering increase participation in elections and other forms of democratic life?
So for my perspective, how I perceive it is that if you really want to get to know, to understand what the democracy is and how important it is, you should experience it. And the best way to experience democracy and all the kind of civic process is just to take part in one of the programs, especially the European Solidarity Corps. If you want to, as young people, they want to feel it. They want to have this feeling that they actually can change something. So if you have the experience with the Solidarity Corps program, you already have this sense of changing. So it's much easier to then understand that there is another way that you can make that influence, and this is through voting. So for me, there is the process that the starting point is to raise awareness about the programs, about the possibilities, about the opportunities, then to experience them fully experience it through Solidarity project, through the volunteering project, or even the humanitarian aid program. And then that will be just clear that there is another obligation, but also a privilege to take part in the voting that will take place soon. So that's the process. So what we are actually doing in a way to make sure that there will be a lot of young people that will decide to go and vote. We don't really like the white-collar suit and tie man saying that, oh, you are the future, go and vote, because it's not really the point. Like, we appreciate that there are some people that are really supporting young initiatives, but what is more persuading actually, that there are like young people who are telling their stories, how the European Union influenced there, how they can change something thanks to the programs. And this is what we are doing as Europe Youth Network, and also many other organizations or many other national agencies also doing it through stories, through telling, through letting young people have their voice really heard. So our campaigns pro voting campaigns are mostly focusing on young people telling why am I voting? What is important for me personally in my region, in my city, in my country, and also from the wider European perspective, why I decide to go there in Poland case on a Sunday, but in other cases and other days from 6 to 9 of June, and to decide to make some difference. So we based all our campaigns about the storytelling, but also about to make this peer-to-peer education and a peer-to-peer learning through experience. And I think that in the long-term perspective, this is also the core of the European Solidarity Corps. So to let the people experience democracy in many different ways so that they can really feel the change, and now they can perceive also the voting as another change to influence and also to make sure that those things that we already have that we'll still have it. So there won't be any changes about this, so we can like still have these opportunities to go abroad, to study, to meet new people, make some changes in our local communities. Because as previously I said, there is nothing that we should take for granted. There still might be some changes, and what we as young people need to make sure that they all will preserve as values, our possibilities, our opportunities, that they will be still there. So this is just one more time to emphasize that all actions that are undertaken by any councils, any organizations to support the idea of voting are very meaningful. But from young perspective, the most meaningful will be those for the first place where there are real people who are really sharing something that they really believe in, and it's not only like speech, and we need something behind it. We need some action behind it. We need some stories behind it. And this is what we also encourage other young people to do, to share. Just to share a photo, I'm voting on Instagram, on some, make some reels, make some posts, just to make it more visible, more recognizable, something that we are proud of to do. And in the wider perspective, the longer perspective, that will be something more natural to do, but also something that we perceive as our privilege, but as an obligation. And it all depends on the perspective from the country. We as Poland has a very young democracy, and from my perspective, I cannot even remember other Poland than a European Poland. I was 4 at the time of joining Poland to the European Union. So I don't really want another Europe. And I think that there are lots of people that can agree with the statement. So if we want to have the chances to gain new experiences, to develop ourselves, but also to change something in our local communities, that's the call, and we should answer to this call by voting. And this is what I really encourage all of young people, but not only young people, to do, to make their voice heard, and just to remember that there is some obligation, but there is also a privilege, and we all should do it.
Thank you very much, Kamil. And hopefully there are other young people here with us. We've seen there are some volunteers from the mentioned in the beginning. So I'm sure that your message will go through. And we are getting quite some questions from the audience, and you are free to add them still. Again, you can use the same Menti. You have the link in the description of the live stream. Below the video, and also I invite our speakers, if you would like to ask each other anything or comment on anything that someone else has said, to feel free. But I have quite some questions now, so I will start asking those that came from the audience. Just before that, I would like to also reflect on the fact that we are getting quite some questions related to the program that are more technical, that we will not be able to answer at this event. Nevertheless, we invite you to contact perhaps the Eurodesk in your countries that can help you clarify these sorts of issues and doubts. Many interesting questions, a bit more program specific, and the first one I will address to Gabriella. It is referring to what you mentioned earlier on the topic of mentorship. So the question is, in your opinion, how could mentorship be more institutionalized, of better quality, and not relying on somebody trying to do their best?
We have several publications on this. I don't know how easy it is to share. I know some of my colleagues are watching. Maybe some of my colleagues can find the EVS realm materials, and I don't know if there's a way to share with the other participants. But what we have seen is that, unfortunately, while we in general support and we like the move towards lump sum funding models, flat rate funding models, unfortunately we see that unless there really is a specific budget line and there's a specific requirement to invest in mentoring, when budgets are so tight, mentoring is often the thing which is dropped. And there is no investment on even covering expenses, perhaps even paying a mentor, paying for training of mentors. So we need to find a mechanism whereby there is a specific financial line within the way that European Solidarity Corps is funded to ensure that mentoring is covered, or that we really ensure that mentoring is absolutely a core part of the quality label, so that we can really ensure that mentoring is taking place in a quality way. One of the core principles of quality mentoring that we see is that the mentor really should be somebody external to the hosting organization, external to the placement of where the volunteer is. And this, of course, is challenging, because then this, of course, relies on people trying to do their best who are not even part of the organization. We've seen that this kind of independent voice, this independent possibility for conversation outside of the specific, engagement environment for the volunteer is very, very important. And what we've tried to look at and tried to work towards as well is some kind of European pool of mentors, of maybe, ex-European Solidarity Corps people, ex-EVS people like those of us here who have been involved in the program one way or another. And of course, online engagement is not always ideal. But trying to see how maybe some online mentoring with people from different parts of Europe can really help to support and widen the numbers of people who can be possible mentors could be something that's interesting. But it certainly needs investment. Mentors also need training. Mentors also need support. We saw it more than ever during COVID times, but it's a general thing that mentors sometimes have to listen to very painful and difficult stories, painful and difficult experiences of some of the volunteers that they're either bringing from before their volunteering experience or they are experiencing during their volunteering experience. And those mentors need to be supported in that. Those mentors need to have a space where they can also, release that stress and talk about the things that they have heard and understand how they can best support the young people. So, definitely training, definitely funding. The independence of the mentor as outside the actual hosting organization is really, really critical for the quality of the mentorship. But we do have some materials. We can try to find the best way to share those about what we think the characteristics of good mentoring are and what actually needs to change within the program to make sure that mentoring can be more prolific and of a higher quality than it already is.
Thank you, Gabriella. And we are also looking into seeing if we can then share the links that you and the other speakers would like to share with the audience in the description of the video. So we will look into that. And I would then like to ask the next questions. There are so many, and we have limited time, so to try to make the most of it and also answering to what the audience is interested in tackling. And so the next question would be for Ella, and it refers to the impact. It reads, in order to enhance the impact of European Solidarity Corps, wouldn't it be worthy to better support and reinforce the role of lead organizations as in between for the national agencies and the multiple hosting organizations? It's a bit specific question, I would say, but could also be interesting to see your perspective.
I guess it depends on the type of organization, which is lead or a host. There have been some publications and I think some webinars offered by the SALTO about impact and community impact in the Solidarity Corps. And we have translated and added some national examples to try and inspire as well the organizations and provided some training for this, because it's a rather difficult thing to measure, the community local impact. I mean, how do you measure it? How do you quantify it? So in that sense, it would make sense to have the lead organizations in charge of this, because it's something you have to, look into and train yourself to. Lead organizations have a stronger role, basically, in the implementation of the program. On the other hand, if you imagine having host organizations, which are not necessarily youth organizations or volunteering organizations, but which are NGOs and which are provided with the quality standards by the lead organization, which specializes in volunteering, then I think maybe the NGOs would be best equipped to measure the impact, because they have their own goals as NGO. For example, an environmental NGO will try to reduce, I don't know, the quantity of plastic in a river, for example. So they have some very specific goals, and that's built in their NGO, that it's built around some specific goals. So I think it really depends on the type of organization being lead. And basically it should be done by both, to be honest. But it could be really interesting and a fruitful dialogue, actually, between lead and host organizations on specifically what kind of impact we are looking for, and also work with the volunteers on defining the impact we are aiming at, and then trying, without it being too time-consuming, but trying to define a few ways of measuring this, just to make sure that we're in a continuous improvement process, and that we can say, okay, we tried, it didn't work, we should try something else. Because I think it's important that the program is also about trying, testing, and that's okay. I mean, that's part of a pathway as well for organizations, and sometimes you think you can achieve something, but you don't, and you're allowed to fail. And that, and if you know how to identify it, then you know how to improve next time, and to work with the volunteers to improve the project. So I don't know. I'm not sure it really totally answers the questions. Sorry.
Thank you, Ella. I think so. I was not the one asking it, but I think you provided a good and interesting perspective on the topic. So thank you for that. And we're jumping a bit here, also trying to incorporate all the different questions and angles, and also the different speakers we have here. So there is one interesting question for Kamil. Since also in your input you referred to the competencies, there was also mentioning of recognition of competencies earlier from Rares as well. So there is a question from the audience related to recognition of skills. So Kamil, what do you think is still needed in terms of recognition? The youth pass is working quite well, but is it enough?
Mm-hmm. So I would say what is important at the very beginning is a good and clear understanding what actually youth pass is, So there is the whole process of implementing the Youth Pass throughout the whole project, and it should not be treated as a gift at the very end of the project. And I know some cases that it's worked like that. So you're just as a participant or as a volunteer, you're receiving some kind of a paper at the very end, and that means that you done something, and it shouldn't be like that. So I would like to start with the recognition of a youth pass throughout the organization themselves, and then to start with the recognition of the document through the labor market, through the employers, because if we as young people wouldn't know what is this paper, what does it mean? I have it on the PDF somewhere on my computer, and I haven't been involved anyway in creating this. So I think that what is needed at the first place is to establish like some kind of common understanding of how Youth Pass should be treated, and it should be treated as a assessment tool that help young people to recognize their competence they're gaining through the process. It shouldn't be just given as some kind of the gift at the end that you accomplish something, and we decide that you will have this competence, you gain this competence or develop that ability. So that's the first point, is to make sure that all of the youth organizations are able to maintain this level of understanding through the young people, and also through young people to understand how they can actually use it, because sometimes there are some people saying, oh, this document it's kind of diploma, and you can use it somehow, somewhere. You can use it, it's useful, but I think it's not enough. Like young people should also know in what scenarios, in what cases they can actually use it, where should they put it. So for example, when they're creating their first CV, it can be in the format of the Europass. So then they can easily look at their Youth Pass, and they can, with 100% being sure, set and put the competences they have on their Youth Pass to their CV, because they were the ones who actually developed those competences, and they are sure that they are the competences that they're considered as theirs, so as really theirs, not as someone put the competence on the list. So that's the second thing, and the third would be the recognition through the employers. I think this is also very important. Just to I think that in Poland there are some big international companies, or maybe kind of governmental bodies that are recognize it and really take care about the Youth Pass itself. But I think that there should be still more information provided to the employers on how they can actually they can perceive these documents. So it's not a piece of paper that somebody just sign up and said, okay, yeah, there's a signature, there's the stamp, but there's actually a meaning behind this behind this paper. So what I would like to be introduced more is actually the true meaning of the Youth Pass as a document that is not only a tool, but it's also a document that proves some kind of the competences, abilities that young people gained, and we should be also, as young people who have possessed something like that, be proud of having this document, and to use the competences that are that are here. They're theirs to also put it in the CV, to put it on the kind of application, and it should be also connected with the real role of the volunteer, or with the leader or the participant. So this should be like something that is just confirming our abilities and our commitment.
Thank you very much, Kamil. And we are getting more questions, and we are almost at the end of our event. So I'm going to go ahead and ask a very interesting question that also just came in. It tackles a bit of a different perspective here, but I think it would be very interesting to see your points of view. It's not addressed to anyone in particular, so I would say either Ella or Gabriella can answer it as you prefer, or both. And the question is, how do you see engagement connected with online spaces? And does online, or do online and digital spaces provide future possibilities? And I see some.
I can reply if you want, Alexandra. The short answer is yes, of course. We're living in a digital world. The nuance and the keyword, I think, is balance. We have to balance our online time and our offline time, and we have to find the online opportunities and the online possibilities where it's the best option. We have been quite concerned to hear about, in conversations about the future of the European Solidarity Corps, to talk about online opportunities as an economic measure, i.e. we understand that as a way of reaching more people more cheaply. That should not be the basis by which we introduce online engagement within the European Solidarity Corps or within other programs. We should be looking at online when it really has an added value, not something that is cheaper or is a way of just involving more people. And there's plenty of evidence, and we have plenty of information about what kind of tasks, what kind of profiles of people, what kind of situations, particularly blended volunteering. So starting to volunteer online and then moving into physical volunteering can be a very good way of involving people with fewer opportunities, can be a very good way of encouraging shy or reluctant people to really get involved with the cause. So online volunteering certainly has its place, but not as a catch-all opportunity, not as a cheaper opportunity, but something where it really has an added value, usually alongside some kind of also face-to-face engagement as well.
Thank you, Gabriella, and also thank you for keeping the time. I would also like to invite Ella to reflect on this, as I know this is also a topic of your interest, and if you would like, you could also tackle a bit on how the Solidarity Corps could reduce also the risk associated to digital participation, digital transformation. Maybe that's tackling another angle, so I leave it up to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I fully agree with what Gabriella just said. I looked at the figures a bit. For example, in January in France, 85% of 15-24-year-olds were connected to internet every day. And on average, it's nearly 4 hours a day, so it's huge. And 58% of that time is spent on social media. So I think we cannot have a youth program which doesn't look into digital spaces. And okay, there are many, many risks. And I think there's a good learning opportunity and a good peer learning opportunity as well for volunteers who engage with youth to have this discussion and not have it from a top-down sort of approach, but have a true debate among young people on how they address questions such as digital well-being. Basically, there are also, we were talking about community impact, but a lot of community now is online as well. So for lots of young people, they have online communities. And so I think that's really interesting because these can provide spaces in which you want to act as well. And it's especially interesting if you're a marginalized or isolated young person, because you can find a community in which you feel integrated in online. And sometimes it's nearly impossible if you're, for example, in a very rural area or so on. So in terms of inclusion, it can be very interesting as well. And in terms of civic engagement, well, we have all received some petitions online. And we know the power of that. I think most of us have experienced it, how, you can really grassroots kickstart some awareness raising and get some political movement as well, and really have a big snowball effect from a very small group of people initially. So it provides not just, okay, there are risks, lots to do as well with okay, it's skills, but it's also a lot about well-being, and I think volunteering is a good scheme to address this. But it's also full of opportunities to support the actions which are being put in place locally on the ground. So I think it's really something interesting to look into more specifically.
Thank you very much, Ella. And I would also like to give the floor to Kamil to reflect on this topic of youth engagement in online spaces from European perspective, as this seems to be a very interesting topic for the audience.
Yeah, for sure it is. I would just like to refer a bit to the kind of threats of the cyberspace, because my professional work, I'm working on the team of disinformation, especially in disinformation social media. And regarding the campaign to the European Parliament, there are a lot of threats concerning this topic. So I would just like to emphasize that the social media sphere and the infosphere, so-called, there are a lot of they provide a lot of opportunities to communicate, to engage, to create impact, but also they are full of threats. So what is crucial to using this kind of spaces to develop the critical thinking ability, which is actually the goal to fight to countering disinformation. Because if we are asking the right question, if we are able to think critically and also to divide the truth from lie on the very basic stages and from the very early stages of development of young people, there are some competences that we can also use later during our choices of work, of job, or choices of volunteering projects, but also using in implementing our projects. So there are some spaces that are super important, but also in a way that we have to be aware of the threats, especially the misinformation regarding the campaigns that are ongoing. So there are lots of points that should be also taken care of during the some kind of cyber volunteering or other kind of stuff.
Thank you very much, Kamil, and thank you, everyone. We still have a lot more questions and angles to tackle, from the solidarity component and the impact and inclusion. But as we are almost at the end of our webinar, I would now like to invite you all to share with us some thoughts and closing remarks for the end of this afternoon's event. So we can start off with Gabriella.
Well, I can start with thanking everybody for listening and for thanking the organizers as well. Looking ahead to next week, hoping that the new leaders that we're going to have within the European Union will support our ideas that we really do need a program with solidarity at its heart, that solidarity is at the heart of the European Union, but European Solidarity Corps is the only program which has that in the name, which has that as the purpose, which is really looking at supporting our communities, which is looking at reducing polarization, increasing links between people and between communities, and increasing the depth and connectivity between people in society. So, let's hope for next week and the following weeks that our newly elected leaders will also appreciate this and see this and can build a stronger European Solidarity Corps, and building from there a proper European civic engagement and volunteering strategy more broadly, which is something that Europe also needs very, very much.
Thank you very much, Gabriella. And I would now like to give the floor to Ella.
Okay, my takeaway message would be that I think the program is really effective today already, that the impact is already here, that there are numerous volunteering and solidarity projects which are having a positive impact today. And it's not just about the participants, it's also about the local communities the projects are embedded in. And I think that's very precious. And although we don't have extra funding to develop the program, we have to be vocal about this, all of us taking part in the program. because if we don't talk about the program because there's no space to develop, well, the risk is that this impact is not seen, is not identified. And I think we need the whole community of stakeholders to do this.
Thank you, Ella. And Kamil, please share your closing remarks as well.
Yeah, what I think is that what young people need to really be civic engaged and to be active in a way of the local communities, but as a European community is the first is the information, the second is motivation, the third is the inspiration. I think that all three components are the core values actually of the European Solidarity Corps, and if we were able to give them all the kind of things also connected to some space to grow, to develop, that will be the effect that we can see in all stories throughout the whole Europe, that there are some people that are actively changing their communities and actually also developing the solidarity, because what I believe is that the solidarity is spreading through sharing, and I think that we should keep it that way.
Thank you very much, Kamil. Thank you all for participating today for this very inspiring conversation, as well as to everyone who was in the audience with us. I would also like to share that the links Gabriella was referring to have already been shared in the description of the video, so you can find it there, and probably you'll just need to refresh in case you cannot see it right now. So they are all there, and thank you once again, everyone, for this very inspiring afternoon. And to close off our webinar, I would like to give the floor back to Christine Weil from SALTO European Solidarity Corps.
Thank you very much for all your insights and sharing your experience and expertise. I think it was really inspirational. It was very interesting to listen to you. And also big thanks to the audience for very interesting questions to our panel. So great job that you did there. I just wanted to, while finishing up, point out that lots of the topics that have been talked about today relate very closely to our work as SALTO European Solidarity Corps Resource Center, and also to the position paper of the SNAC volunteering that was developed last year. It's called Better Conditions for Youth Volunteering. And one of the main messages within this document is more or less reflecting what you just said in this final round, that it's really important to keep and further develop a value-based program that keeps the high quality, is inclusive, that puts European values and solidarity in its heart, and actually so much more that the Solidarity Corps already has in it, but can be further developed. You will find also the link for this document in the comment section. I just would like to quickly highlight the three main pillars we have in this document, just to get you an idea. We are talking about the introduction of an EU volunteer status. This came up quite a few times today. We also talk about introducing a quality charter for volunteering to ensuring health, safety and security of participants, but also to support measures for mental health, for example, which has not been touched so much today, but still is very essential. And also to invest in capacity building for organizations, which is also closely related to the digital transformation that we also face in volunteering. So basically, as SALTO European Solidarity Corps and within our SNAC volunteering, we are planning more events, online, also in person, all wrapped around those topics, all wrapped around the position paper and topics that were discussed today and furthermore. And we would like to invite you to check out our website. The link again is in the comment section, and also please follow us on social media so you're updated. Whenever new events come up, you will find the information there. So finally, closing the whole thing, thank you so much for being with us today. I wish you a very relaxed evening, and I hope to see you again very soon. Have a great evening and enjoy the rest of the week.
Thank you very much, Christine. Thank you, everyone. And we will now close the webinar with a short video. Thank you and good afternoon.